Welcome back. Let me first welcome my dear guest live here in the studio, Professor Dr. Hazem Khamis, the Chairman of Directors in NADO, the National Anti-Doping Organization, and of course, he is one of the veteran sports cardiologists, and it seems that we do have a lot to speak about, so we are going to start immediately. Sir, it's an honor to have you on RTV International screen.
Thank you very much. It's kind for this kind invitation. I'd like to thank you.
Sir, let's start. As I said, we do have a lot to speak about. As far as I know, and just before being on air, we were chatting on the NADO issue. And the anti-doping organization is a very important organization in the field of sports in general. Let me first know about your impression when you know that you are going to be the chairman of the directors.
It was a surprise because my branch, my career is totally different. But I think Professor Ashraf Sobhi, the Minister of Youth and Sport, chose me for this mission because for what I did in the championship, in the handball World Cup, because I was the chairman of the medical commission. And I was the responsible for all the regulations that was done very successfully in this championship. And you know, all the games, all the competition all over the world became very easy after the Egyptian experience in the handball championship.
The organization, or in organizing such a huge event.
Yes.
But sir, I mean, the anti-doping issue became, I don't know, would you please correct me if I'm wrong, very complicated, very sophisticated. The kits to be used, the laboratories which are accredited by WADA, the staff which should be working, they should have such a scientific background, even if they are not physicians. The timing of taking the sample, the surprising visits of the athlete, just, of course, we are in a very critical period, as just in a month we are going to see what's going on in Tokyo with the Olympic Games. Tell me about this and about how NADO, or the Egyptian organization, is following this up on the ground and maybe minute by minute.
You know, the WADA, the World Organization Agency, is the most important organization in the sport all over the world. You know, we have the most important two organizations, the Olympic Committee and the WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency. And in some countries, not all the countries, there is what's called the National Anti-Doping Organization. Fortunately, Egypt have one of the NADOs, the Egyptian NADO. The Egyptian NADO is very important because this organization is controlling all the anti-doping process in the country. We need to give the audience a small brief what we mean. The target of the WADA and the national NADOs to have a clean and a clear sport. You need to have the medals, you need to be a champion. Do this by your effort, your training, your muscles. Not use cheats to have these medals. You need to inject yourself, take pills, take any substances, doping substances. This will be not a fair game for any champion. So the main issue, number one, the awareness. The NADO must do the awareness for the athletes and their families, and their physician and the federation, doctors, physiotherapists, because you may have doping substances and you don't know this is from the prohibited list. So this is number one. Number two, the testing. The most important function of the anti-doping organization is do the testing. The testing came from, number one, internationally. The International Federation of any game, basketball, handball, football, they send for the Egyptian NADO the names haphazardly, randomized. You must do the test for this player and not this player. For any competition, regional competition, African or international competition, and the what's called the accredited lab. The Egyptian accredited lab for anti-doping, only it is accredited for the blood samples, and you are in the process for the urine sample. You know, the most important is the urine sample. It is easier, rapid,
sure.
and
but I think that the WADA said they are going to implement what they call the dried spot sample, and this is going to be a leap in this issue because it's going to be that easy, and it's going to make it easier for the NADOs.
but still the urine urine analysis for doping substances is the most important, and the regulation for doing the test is very difficult and very sophisticated. The CO who will take the sample, when you have the name of the player, he watching him, looking for him, and take him to take the sample in a very sophisticated manner. There is some what's called bad thought in the country, that the NADO, like the police man, he will tackle the player. This is not the truth. The truth, the NADO is a very helpful organization for all the athletes in the country and their families. If the athletes and their families know the requirements, know the regulations, and obey the codes of the WADA across the Egyptian NADO.
And you are just implementing the whereabouts rule. I mean, you should know where the athletes are, and particularly those who qualified to the Olympics as those who are qualified to Tokyo Olympic Games, inshallah. But sir, if you permit me, I'm going to represent the other side of the coin. As you've kindly mentioned, the families of the athletes should be aware of what's going on. But not all the families are aware, for example, that some of the exported meat may be one of the reasons behind testing positive for their sons or daughters. Many would not know that some of the flu medications may be some of the reasons. Many of them would not know that if their kids or their sons or daughters are having treatments for thyroid, this also would be something like that. How these information would be available to the parents or to the families to avoid such dilemmas?
Number one, there is what's called the updated code, prohibited list. This is on the site of the WADA, the international site of the WADA, and it is very available for any athlete and for the families. Also, the website of the Egyptian NADO regularly updated all the prohibited list for the athlete.